Hey folks, before we get started, make sure you follow SkyAlert USA so you don't miss this video or any of our future updates. If you like what we do, support us by subscribing, liking and dropping a comment down below. It really helps us out. And well, we appreciate every single one of you. What you're watching right now is not a normal winter storm. What you're watching is a meteorological monster, a bomb cyclone that has shattered records, paralyzed the most densely populated corridor in the entire United States, and left hundreds of thousands of Americans shivering in the dark. Welcome back to SkyAlert USA, your #1 source for extreme weather coverage across North America. I'm your host, and today, February 24th, 2026, we're tracking one of the most significant and historic winter storms to ever strike the northeastern United States in modern memory. We're talking about Winter Storm Hernando, also being called the Blizzard of 2026. And if you thought the worst was over, stay right here, because we have an urgent 3-day forecast that every American and Canadian needs to hear. Let's get into it. Let's start with the basics, because this storm has a lot of moving parts, and it's critical that you understand the full picture. Winter storm. Hernando did not just arrive out of nowhere. This system began its life as a shortwave trough, essentially an area of disturbed atmospheric energy that came ashore along the west coast of the United States as far back as February 20th near California. Over the following 24 hours, this disturbance moved rapidly eastward, crossing the Rocky Mountains and dropping light snowfall over portions of the high plains. By February 21st, a stationary front was draped across the southeastern United States, and that's where the real story began. On the morning of February 22nd, a brand new surface low-pressure system developed off the coast of North Carolina, with an initial central pressure of around 1,009 millibars. That doesn't sound alarming until you watch what happened next. This storm went through a process called Bombogenesis, where a low-pressure system drops more than 24 millibars of pressure in just 24 hours. That is the meteorological definition of a bomb cyclone. And Hernando did exactly that, deepening explosively and dropping to a central pressure of 966 millibars by the afternoon of February 23rd. For comparison, that is a central pressure similar to a Category 2 hurricane. The critical difference is that this is a cold core system, meaning instead of warm tropical winds and rain, you get howling Arctic winds, heavy snow, and blizzard conditions. This is why meteorologists, emergency managers, and weather enthusiasts across the country have been glued to their screens. Hernando wasn't just a snowstorm. It was a winter hurricane, and it struck the heart of one of the most populated regions on Earth. Now let's go state by state and look at what this storm has done. Starting in Rhode Island, the numbers are absolutely staggering. The town of South Providence has recorded approximately 38 inches of snowfall as of this morning, and snow continues to accumulate. This is not just a record for this season. This is one of the highest snowfall totals ever recorded in the state. Governor after governor across New England issued states of emergency, and Rhode Island activated the Rhode Island National Guard ahead of the storm's arrival. Moving to New York, the impact has been widespread and devastating. On Long Island, the communities of Lynbrook and Babylon each recorded 2 full feet of snow. In Islip, New York, residents woke up to an astonishing 31 inches of snow over just 2 days, smashing the previous local record that had stood since February 2013. In Manhattan, snow was piling so fast that people were actually skiing down Fifth Avenue near Central Park in the middle of the night. A surreal image that captured the scale of this event perfectly. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani issued a citywide travel ban, grounding all non-emergency vehicles. For the first time in years, New York City public schools were fully closed. Not a digital learning day, an actual snow day. In New Jersey, the township of Freehold recorded 24.2 inches of snow, and in Monmouth County alone, 28,000 homes and businesses lost electricity. Newark's mayor extended the city's travel ban into Monday noon. The potential for dangerous black ice remains a severe threat throughout the overnight and early morning hours, particularly on untreated road surfaces. In Massachusetts, Boston recorded just over 16 inches of snow, and thousands of commuters and travelers found themselves stranded. The cascading impacts to transportation have been severe. In Canada, the storm didn't stop at the border. Environment and Climate Change Canada issued yellow and orange winter storm warnings across Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and parts of Newfoundland and Labrador. The Halifax-Stanfield International Airport saw significant flight cancellations. Municipal offices, libraries, and public facilities across Halifax were shuttered. Schools across Nova Scotia and New Brunswick dismissed early or closed entirely. Ferries along the Maritime coast were cancelled, and wind gusts were forecast to exceed 80 kilometres per hour in exposed coastal areas. This storm has done something that very few weather events in American history have managed to do. It has essentially shut down air travel for the entire northeastern United States. According to FlightAware, more than 10,000 flights have been cancelled from Sunday through Tuesday. Virtually all of them in the path of winter storm Hernando. On Monday alone, over 5,300 flights were grounded, with another 1,300 pre-cancelled for Tuesday. At the three major airports serving New York City, LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark Liberty International, approximately 63% of all cancellations were concentrated. Delta Airlines suspended all Northeast operations at Boston Logan, JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark. If you have flights in or out of the Northeast this week, do not assume anything. Check with your airline frequently and expect delays to cascade through Wednesday. One of the most dangerous and underreported aspects of this blizzard is the power outage crisis. As of this morning, more than 600,000 homes and businesses across the Northeast have lost electricity. In the middle of the winter, with temperatures hovering at and below freezing. That means hundreds of thousands of Americans are not just inconvenienced. They are potentially in life-threatening situations, particularly the elderly, those without shelter, and families with young children. New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York have the highest concentrations of outages. Power companies are working around the clock to restore service, but with roads buried under multiple feet of snow and high winds still battering the coast, crews are struggling to access downed lines and damaged infrastructure. Now let's zoom out and explain why this is happening, because this storm didn't occur in a vacuum. This is the latest and perhaps most explosive chapter in an ongoing atmospheric story that has been unfolding for weeks. Earlier this winter, meteorologists began tracking a powerful sudden stratospheric warming event, a phenomenon where temperatures in the stratosphere, about 30 kilometers above the Earth's surface, rise dramatically and rapidly. This causes the polar vortex, the massive circulation of cold air that normally stays locked near the Arctic, to weaken, deform, and split. When that happens, the Arctic floodgates swing open, and deep pools of polar air begin cascading southward into Canada and the United States. For weeks, this displaced Arctic air has been setting the stage. A powerful subtropical jet streak, essentially a river of fast-moving upper atmosphere winds, collided with a sharply displaced lobe of that Arctic air over the east coast, triggering the explosive cyclogenesis that created Hernando. This storm is textbook in the worst possible way. It is exactly what climate scientists and meteorologists predicted would happen following a polar vortex disruption. And here's the sobering reality. The disruption is not over. More atmospheric energy remains locked in the system, and the pattern is likely to remain active well into the beginning of meteorological spring. All right, now the part you've all been waiting for, the 3-day outlook. So, what happens next? Today, Tuesday, February 24th. Winter storm. Hernando is pulling away from the coastline and moving northeast toward New England and Maritime Canada. However, heavy snow, coastal flooding threats and hurricane-force wind gusts are still ongoing across parts of southeastern New England. Snowfall rates may still briefly exceed 1 inch per hour in isolated locations. The danger today is not just the snowfall. It's the black ice. As temperatures begin to recover slightly, partially melted snow will refreeze on untreated surfaces overnight, creating invisible and extremely dangerous road conditions. Travel bans remain in effect across multiple states. If you do not need to leave your home today, stay inside. Tomorrow, Wednesday, February 25th. A new secondary storm system is expected to swing through the Great Lakes region by Tuesday night and clip the northeast overnight into Wednesday morning. This system is notably weaker than Hernando and will not produce the same catastrophic snowfall totals. However, it will produce additional accumulations of up to 2 inches across most of the region, with higher elevations in Pennsylvania, New York State, and northern New England, potentially seeing 3 to 5 additional inches. For areas already buried under 2 to 3 feet of snow, even a couple of inches more adds to the structural load on roofs and infrastructure. Roof collapse risk remains elevated, particularly for older buildings and structures. Check your roof if it is accessible and safe to do so. Thursday, February 26th. The secondary system exits to the east and the region enters a brief but important recovery period. Temperatures will remain below normal, single digits to the teens in northern New England, teens to mid-20s across the mid-Atlantic. The focus on Thursday shifts to cleanup, power restoration and managing ice. However, long-range models are already hinting at the possibility of yet another pattern disruption by late next week, driven by the lingering effects of the polar vortex collapse. We will have a full update on that potential threat in the coming days. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it. For our Canadian viewers, the story in Maritime Canada is still evolving. Coastal flooding advisories, blowing snow advisories and wind warnings remain in effect across much of Atlantic Canada. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI and parts of Newfoundland are all experiencing significant impacts. Halifax has suspended parking and all non-essential city services through today. Emergency shelters have been activated. Residents in coastal areas should remain vigilant for storm surge and wave-driven flooding in addition to snow and wind. This storm will begin to taper across Canada on Wednesday, but cold air will persist well into the week. I want to close this segment with a broader perspective because what's happening this week is not an isolated event. The collapse of the polar vortex in the stratosphere, which began earlier this month with the confirmed sudden stratospheric warming event, has fundamentally altered the weather pattern across North America for the rest of February and potentially into March. The atmospheric engines that drove winter storm Hernando into being are still spinning. The polar vortex disruption can have surface weather impacts that persist for 4 to 8 weeks after the initial warming event. That means the United States and Canada should brace for continued opportunities for significant winter weather events through at least mid-March. Additionally, there is a growing signal in the latest long-range model data for a rapid transition toward El Niño conditions this spring as the current La Niña pattern collapses. And that transition could reshape the weather pattern dramatically heading into late spring and summer. We will be tracking all of it right here on SkyAlert USA. That is your full SkyAlert USA briefing for Tuesday, February 24th, 2026. Winter storm Hernando has written itself into the history books. A bomb cyclone of historic proportions that has brought the Northeast to its knees. Shattered snowfall records from New York to Rhode Island, grounded over 10,000 flights, and left more than 600,000 Americans without power. The storm is pulling away, but the danger is not gone. Black ice, additional snowfall from a secondary system, and extreme cold will continue to threaten life and property through the week. Stay safe, stay informed. And if you found this coverage helpful, please hit that like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to SkyAlert USA. Because when severe weather strikes North America,